Welcome back to our part two of our Premier Candidate debate here on Good Morning Cape Town. Joining us this hour, in which you can also ask your questions, the Premier Candidate for the ACDP, Ferlin Christians. We have ActionSA's Angela Sobi, the candidate for Rise Mzansi, Akolile Notiwala, Professor Muhammad Harun from Jama-ah, and from the Patriotic Alliance, representing the Patriotic Alliance, Cheslin Steenberg. Gayton McKenzie as leader. He is also running as Premier in this province. But I invite you to ask your questions, 021 4460 567, or you can drop me a WhatsApp, 072 567 1567.
Everything you need to know about elections 2024 on CapeTalk. Join the conversation.
I invite your voice notes, but in the interest of brevity, in time, if we have to ask a general question to political parties, it means all five have to answer, because we try to be fair and equitable in giving similar airtime and space for political parties to address. So if you have a question targeted to a political party, and try and keep it to as little as 20 seconds long. But as we did in our first round, we are opening up our debate with opening statements from these political parties. Again, the rules is that 90 seconds is your time. If you go to 115 seconds, our timekeeper will ring his bell and essentially just drown you out. But Akolile Notiwala from Rise Mzansi, you want to be the Premier of the Western Cape. What's your opening remarks?
Good morning and thank you, Lester. Rise Mzansi is a party with a vision for a safe, equal, prosperous and united South Africa. And we have joined politics because we believe the establishment has failed. The ANC has failed over the last 30 years. The DA continues to fail and has failed over the past 15 years. And we say we need new leaders, leaders who care, leaders who have integrity, and leaders who are capable to make sure that we fix the destruction of over the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years of these political parties that have ruled both in the province of the Western Cape and in the country. We are led by a national leadership collective of diverse group of leaders who come from civil society, business, academia and politics, and we believe it is those leaders that are capable to take South Africa to a different trajectory in the next 30 years.
Professor Muhammad Harun of Jama-ah.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. Firstly, just coming to this venue brings back terrible memories, and I think we all have been affected. We continue to be affected as we look around. Benny Keys, Dalla Omar and others who were stalwarts in our struggle. Having said that, I think even for me personally, just looking across the road at Caledon Square, where my father was taken and of course eventually killed, not necessarily in Maitland police station, but I think these are sort of concerns, be that as it may. I think one of the sort of important issues of Jama-ah is that it's concerned with social justice across the board, across all levels, across all communities, and I think this is one of its sort of focal sort of areas as such. But as a potential sort of politician, I didn't ask myself to be there. I didn't vie for this particular position. But because of the background, the baggage that I come with, I think I have some of the skills that hopefully can assist and transform. So basically we are representing a party that has been active in the Western Cape. We intend to try to do whatever is best for our communities, representing them, serving them, and delivering for each and every community. Thanks.
Angela Sobi of ActionSA.
Good morning to you, Lester, my fellow panelists and the listeners this morning. ActionSA represents the emergence of newer political parties and non-politicians entering the political fray, and this has been necessitated by the failures of establishment political parties at a national, provincial and local government level. ActionSA has stepped up into this this race to ensure a province that actually works for all and not just a particular demographic. When you look at the challenges in the country and in the Western Cape, it speaks to a lack of political will and a lack of political accountability. The communities that are hardest hit by these challenges are the disenfranchised communities, the ones that live on the periphery of the city. And it is important that as ActionSA we step into this space and avail ourselves as a credible political alternative. I step into this space also as someone that was raised on the Cape Flats and as a candidate of mixed culture and origin. And as a woman, I speak from lived experience to the challenges that I've observed on the Western Cape, which speak to high rates of gender-based violence and femicide, which speak to the challenges of high rates of unemployment, substance abuse, poverty, crime, gangsterism, and numerous dynamics, but not just the metro. Lester, you're also talking communities further afield from the Western Cape. You're talking forgotten communities out in areas like Maritzburg and so on.
Thank you very much. Cheslin Steenberg of the Patriotic Alliance.
Good morning and thank you for the opportunity. Lester, the Patriotic Alliance, being very, very, very well known under the leadership of Kate McKenzie, has entered the fray simply because we understand that this country has gone to the dogs. And so our plan is a very simple one. We are focused on housing. In particular, in Cape Town, we have more than 400,000 people on the housing database. And the city of Cape Town cannot produce the amount of homes as quickly as the people register. And so the PA will be introducing what we call serviced plots, water, electricity, sewage, because we understand that there is land available. I think the minister earlier, Patricia de Lille, indicated that when she was in power, a lot of land parcels was made available. The second thing we are aiming to do is to focus on jobs, and we are doing that by empowering people to start up businesses, develop and fund and support these businesses. But then also the reality of our country is that crime is the order of the day. And so we are simply saying that we will strengthen our policing sector, we will professionalize detectives, we will look at our VISPOL units and our specialized units. We are currently dealing with the city of Cape Town with regards to their law enforcement and Metro Police dealings, how they are operating. They are not assisting Metro Police, law enforcement to really do their job. And so we are currently working hard on that. And then, of course, we have a whole host of other things that we are aiming to do.
Ferdinand Christians of the ACDP, opening statement.
Thank you very much and good morning. The ACDP heard the cry of the people of the Western Cape and South Africa, and that's why our slogan for this election is SOS, Service, Order and Safety. Now, if we look at service, people are not getting services in the Western Cape. There's people that's, struggling in certain areas. There's no order in our schools. When we talk about order and safety, of course, I've been to Steenberg the other day. I go to yesterday in Mitchell's Plain, and people are crying and saying we are not safe even going to our schools. So as a boy grown up in Bonteheuwel, I know what it is for people to struggle. I'm in the community every day. And as the ACDP, we want to present, and we've always presented, God-fearing leaders with integrity, and leaders that are trustworthy. So, people talk about the establishment, not establishment. We've not been in power in the Western Cape. The DA has, and not in some municipalities we have co-governed. So we also believe that we have the experience in order to strengthen democracy in the Western Cape and also strengthen the government in the Western Cape with new ideas to make sure that our people are safe, get good services, and also make sure that when a lady goes to the shop that she's safe. There's a lot of policies, of course, that we have and we want to implement, and we want to be part of the government in the Western Cape, and that's why we're working extremely hard, because our people deserve it after 30 years.
Let's focus on safety and security. Akkolile and Angela, I'll start with you. Akkolile, plenty of manifestos in this election promise more policing. Up to 100,000 more police is what's offered by the EFF. Is more police officers, boots on the ground, the issue, particularly to solve the issue of something like 57 murders in the Western Cape every day?
So we've seen that hasn't worked in this province currently. As was said earlier in the earlier debate, the current premier took about R1 billion from health and education towards the safety plan, which is where they've employed law enforcement officers, which they've deployed. What they've done is that they've been able to move crime around and not deal with crime. They've displaced crime from one community to another when they deploy law enforcement. The issues that we have to deal with are the issues that education and health can deal with. We have a drug abuse problem, and that's a social and health issue. You need to capacitate the health department. You need to rehabilitate young people. You need to keep young people at school. You need to provide social workers at school so that those who are affected by this issue of drugs can be helped there. Because what happens is that they are dismissed at school, and the only way they can feel a sense of belonging is through gangs. It is how we will be able to deal with the issue of crime, not with more boots on the ground.
Angela, besides more police or the request for police on the ground, because policing is still largely a national competency, besides more policing on the ground, how you as Premier make our streets, our households, our communities safe?
So on the point of policing, it is, as you said, it's a national competence, but our police certainly need to be better capacitated, better resourced, but it's not just a policing function. It's a partnership and it's a collaboration with communities. You cannot work for communities without communities. So it becomes very important to work with communities to address the challenges in a holistic approach and not just deal with the issue of gangsterism. You need to offer alternatives. You need to address the issue of unemployment so that people have alternatives. Your education system needs to be overhauled, and you need to be able to offer these opportunities in the underprivileged communities in particular. I made an example about a community in Happy Valley where children at primary school level are left on the streets because the nearest school is full and there is no option for them but to languish at home while they wait for a school to be built. So when children are not able to go to school, it contributes to these socioeconomic challenges that we are already burdening communities.
Professor Harun from Jama-ah, there are 600 people on the housing waiting list in the Western Cape. 350,000 applicants are from the Cape Metro alone. With population growth rates growing, the impact of in-migration, how will Jama-ah, if you were Premier, how would you address a 600,000 waiting list here in the Western Cape?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Well, basically, I think that in itself is a major challenge. I mean, no party who's in power can really address it almost overnight. So it takes time. So that means there should be proper planning and engagement with these stakeholders, with these communities that are affected and those that are not affected, because after all, it affects us all in different ways and at different levels. So therefore, we need to put in place a plan that will basically slowly, gradually address these to alleviate those sectors over time. And I think we should also have a timeline with whom we need to work, because after all, people desire better homes, better places. But I think the whole process of social development that was just addressed moments ago also adds to this, partly because there has been inequality for generations. And unfortunately, or sadly to say, the Democratic Alliance government basically has not addressed those. People in Sea Point are given more attention as opposed to those in Kailicha or in Langa and so forth. So there needs to be rebalancing or checking sort of these arenas in such a way that everybody must be given the necessary attention, and housing is just one of those.
Ferland Christians, you place a lot of attention in your manifesto on not only safeguarding our SOEs, but making sure that they run efficiently, the logistics network, particularly of this country, Transnet. The Port of Cape Town, the Port of Saldanha Bay, brings in a bit of our provincial GDP. What are your plans to partner with Transnet to make sure that our ports run efficiently, smoothly, and without corruption?
Look, the ACDP believes in decentralization. So we don't believe that everything must be centralized. So when you bring it down to the provinces and capable provinces capable municipalities, I think we can make big strides in eradicating the shortfalls that we have. I think the big problem is that we're going backwards, and also I think the big problem that we also have is these cadre deployment, these these type of things. We must get capable men and women, irrespective of your skin color, irrespective. Look at the expertise and bring in the expertise in order to have a functional service. I think that is very important. I just wanted to answer something on safety quickly, because that was asked. Safety is, as many other speakers say, but the root cause of the problem that we have at the moment is there was a high court judgment that there's corrupt policemen, prosecutors in the system. So the first thing that you must do is get rid of them out of the system. The second thing that I've always been strong on, because I sit on community safety and police oversight in the province, is of course get our neighborhood watches, our police forums, get them on board, because they live in the community and they can then also make sure that we have safe communities. Just the other thing is, police is one thing, but also uplifting the community, job creation, skills development, and all of those things. And as somebody said, keeping our children in school, keeping them safe is the way. So it's all of society approach. You can't just look at policing.
Thank you, Ferlin. Cheslin, I want to ask you, and Ferlin mentioned education. In the Western Cape, we have 28% of classrooms, grade 3 classrooms in the Western Cape, that have a teacher to learner ratio of more than 40. With a Patriotic Alliance government, what would you do to address class sizes to make sure that each child has a fair opportunity of learning?
I think we need to review the way the infrastructure currently is allocated to schools. And we currently have schools that is 60, 70, almost 100 years old. And so under our leadership, we will simply relook the way the allocation of resources has been done and is being done to our communities. We will also look at what land is available so that we can expand our existing schools. We will moreover look at how do we assist educators to give more? How do you pay them more? How do you give them more? How do you resource them more? So our thing is very clear thing is give more to existing schools, make it bigger, give better resources, and we monitor that, because you cannot just give and you not monitor. So we will monitor. We'll have to recapacitate our IMGs, our circuits, the districts, how they operate, because right now schools are simply thrown to the dogs as, here's your 100K, see what you can do with it.
Cheslin Steberg, really appreciate it. We'll be back after this. I have a couple of voice notes, messages from you, the listener.
Hi, good morning, Lester. Great show as always. Just love it. Election 2024 is Cape Talk's number one. So I'm going to ask the panelist, what are they going to be doing about the mafia construction here in the Western Cape? How do they deal with that? Because at the end of the day, it just sets up a backlog for housing, building bridges, schools, etc. And the marginalized people suffer.
I'll give each party 60 seconds to respond. Akulile?
So this is the failures of our crime intelligence, particularly because we're dealing with organized crime here. And political interference from the ANC in particular has led to the failures of our crime intelligence. And so we need to deal with that. We need to clean the police at a very senior leadership level and remove all the corrupt police officers. But we also need to capacitate the NPA to be able to prosecute these crimes, corruption within the police, but also corruption in the private sector, because some of these construction mafias are also linked to the private sector as well as the public sector. I believe that we need a specialized court that deals with corruption so that it doesn't overburden the already overburdened criminal justice system that we have in the country. And so those are the priorities for Rise Mzansi to deal with all these issues.
Jama?
Well, basically, I think it's a re-education of the sector. I think the security classes, all of them need to be put in a class, so to speak, to basically understand the impact the mafia construction has had and continue to have on our communities. And in order to basically deal with that, they need to be all on the same page. I think some of the security classes seem to operate independently of each other, and as a result there are clashes and bribery takes place and corruption continues. And so in a sense it's a holistic approach need to be done, out of the box thinking.
Angela Sobi.
Well, as ActionSA, we have declared publicly corruption to be public enemy number one. These, what we are talking about, the construction mafia, speaks to a lack of the rule of law, and what needs to be done in terms of that is we need specialized units. We need to ensure that we capacitate the prosecuting arm, and we need to take an absolute zero tolerance approach to this, because it's organized crime at the most sophisticated levels, and the people that pay the prices are those that these houses are meant to be built for. You don't really find this in the areas where the multi-million rand units are being paid for. That is also a level of organized crime. But in terms of where these projects are being hijacked, the communities that are being impacted the most are the impoverished communities.
Cheslin?
Yeah, look, under the PA, we are simply saying we will have to relook the way intelligence is gathered. And right now, we know that our country's intelligence community is really dead. There's no two ways about it. They are working with the criminals. They are benefiting from these criminal acts. In fact, the mafia is paying some government officials, including in the MPA. And so we are saying that we need to also mitigate the political interference when it comes to this. And so under our leadership, we will institute specialized unit that will deal specifically with crimes like this. And we will also have to relook our current legislation, and we will have to look how intelligence is gathered from the ground up.
And Phil?
Thank you very much. I think there's just 2 weeks ago when we saw all of this happening, it's happening for some time, but also with all the murders, being on the standing committee of police oversight, we called in the generals just to give us a breakdown of this, this construction mafia. Now, like they said, the communities are suffering because people are paying 20,000 and protection money and all of that. What we need to see, the guys that's in court now, the big kingpins that's in court now, should be prosecuted. And when they are prosecuted, they should give proper jail time and be hard on them, because they are pulling the strings. Even from prison, these guys are pulling strings. And when you speak to communities, they exactly know what they are doing. So the ACDP also says, protect the whistleblower. There's people in the community that knows exactly what happens. Give them something in reward, but let them whistleblow. And because some of the people I went to, they said, it's no use, I'm going to the police station because my name will be out there, I'm not protected. So I think our communities there plays an important role, MPA and all of that, but when we get it right in communities, when communities whistleblow and they are protected, we can get rid of these construction mafia.
I'll have more of your questions. I want to follow up on the phenomenon of the construction mafia up next. But Lester, all political parties on the show today, lacking inspiration, lacking differentiation. After listening to your debates, one party sounds like the other. At least the EFF are self-acknowledged socialist. But all the others are ideologically the same. Why do we have 3 pages on our voting roll if they are all virtually the same? As the newest introduction to party politics, Akolili, yourself included, we have 52 parties on the national ballot. Muhammad, do you think all our political parties are inherently all spouting the same policy, the same manifestos?
No, not necessarily. I think we all come from with different baggages of different histories, and I think we do come with different solutions as well. But I think this is where the challenge is. I mean, some do mimic the others depending upon their leadership and in which way they have planned and basically put forward their manifestos. So there will be commonalities, no doubt, but I think there are also differences, and depending how we basically view these. When you talk about job creation or job, providing decent jobs, that would be one sort of area where we can debate and discuss where we differ, because the policies have not been the same. I mean, we have critiqued the DA for each way of opening up. We have sort of also critiqued the ANC, but I think as small parties, we basically try to come up with new ways of tackling this. So it's a way of not just doing it ideologically, but more so practically. We need to see in which way there are practical ways of really giving a life to an area that has been very negatively affected.
Before we go to a break, let's go to a quick voice notes directed at the Patriotic Alliance. Let's have a listen.
Good morning, Lester. I just want to ask the PA's Cheslin Steenberg where he thinks all this money is coming from. At the moment, the budgets are already stretched. National government has cut our provincial budget enormously, where we've had to make cuts on the provincial and local level. So where does he think the money is going to come from to resource the schools and the teachers and all the rest of them so that he can have proper education in the Western Cape? Because I think that the DA is currently doing this with the limited budget that it does have. So I'm just wondering where this budget comes from, and hopefully we don't end up with a Dubai in Cape Town. Cheers, Emil from Plumstead.
Because Councillor Emil, I must also note, I recognize that is Councillor Emil of the Democratic Alliance. I will call political operatives who are calling in and asking questions, but you cannot respond to the question, Cheslin.
Yeah, I could actually sense that undertone. And this guy knows what he's talking about. But nonetheless, this country is a very rich country when it comes to resources. And currently, our resources is not working for the people of this country, really. And that is a fact. We need to look at the facts, and if we benefit, if the people can benefit from the resources, I believe that the Treasury would have more money, and by indicating that, we will have more money to give to services within the public sector, like your policing, education, health, housing, etc. So yes, I totally understand where the money comes from. It is simply that the money is not being managed properly. And whether you're in the Western Cape or in KwaZulu-Natal, the point is, if we as a country force our government to make sure that our minerals and our resources works for us, I think life would be a bit better.
We'll be back getting responses from ActionSA, Rise Mzansi and the ACDP up next.
Good morning, Lester. To know from someone who has been in the civil society sector for years, we have been calling for a basic income grant because South Africans are poor, and every year the poor keep getting poorer. More and more people are living under the poverty line. So I would like to hear from Angela Sobi. What are they planning to do with regards to the basic income grant? Thank you.
Angela?
Thank you so much for that question. So ActionSA has got a policy on economic justice, and this is in recognition of the fact that the state has effectively turned everything into, has basically converted everybody to a point where they are dependent on grants as a result of the unemployment and all of that. So as ActionSA, we've got our economic prosperity policy, which seeks to stimulate the economy, economic growth, and get everybody participating again. But we want also to wean people off grants. Those that can work need to work, and those that need to be on grants are better cared for. And it's grants that they can actually live off. We've got something called a universal basic income stimulus, which seeks to address the issues of getting people off the grants and ensuring that those that should be on grants are able to get a living grant.
Next voice note question to Muhammad Harun of Al-Jama.
Lester, with regards to immigration and immigration to the Western Cape, I would like to hear from the respondents what the stance is, or what they plan to do about the issue of gentrification. That means displacing colored and black people from city housing in the center of Cape Town to the Cape Flats, and worsening the socio-economic conditions of the poor in Cape Town on the Cape Flats. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks. Of course, I think gentrification has been a concern for us, And we need to basically, again, as we had said at the outset, that we are here to try to address, issues from a pure social justice perspective. And when one looks at the inequalities that exist, these have been ongoing, and the concern is how do we address those. Bukup, where gentrification is taking place, is one of those sort of areas that have, but of course they are better off in a sense, if one can argue that way, compared to those in far-flung areas such as Kailicha, Ocean View, where, there have been shanty towns. So I think all of these really need serious interventions in terms of really transforming these locales into better places. But having said that, I think just coming to a point that was made earlier, I think our country is fairly rich in resources. It's time that we share those resources very equally. And sadly, this has not happened. And so in terms of gentrification, all of these things are a spin-off of that inequality.
Let me ask Akolele and Fernan this. Canada has banned foreign land ownership, and this they implemented to keep a hand on a property market. And I'd like your thoughts, Akolele, on the restriction on foreign land ownership. Also add into this question of rental accommodation in the CBD, which is escalated, particularly because of a phenomenon of long-term rentals by what's called digital nomads.
Yeah.
How do we address?
So I think part of the very important work of the legislatures, particularly at the National Assembly, which we need to take consideration of, is to look at the existing legislation that might not have been changed for over the past 30 years in relation to land, in relation to many of the past injustices, and make sure that people who are South Africans are considered first in terms of access to land. This issue of I think it's continuous forcible removals, particularly also because it's not only just poor and working class black and colored people now. I would say the precarious middle class is also being displaced by the so-called digital nomads, people who have more money who can come and live in these cities. We need to institute rent regulation and rent control in the city, across cities in the country. Many successful cities are able to deal with the issues of land and the issue of gentrification by making sure that they forcibly implement rent control and rent regulation.
Fernan, as Premier of the Western Cape, what interventions would you put in place to ensure that particularly inner city housing is made affordable? Also, restriction on foreign land ownership to keep housing prices at bay?
Look, thank you for that question. I think the important thing is we all know that people were displaced and moved way away from the city. So as the ACDP, we must first look at what land, state land, is available and get people closer to work. When you speak to communities, people go to work when it's dark, they come home when it's dark. Family time is ACDP believes in strong family values. So you are breaking down families, and we must empower families. So we believe in moving people closer to the work in order for them to also have quality time with the family. Look, the important thing is we will, like you said, we will have to look at what do we have, but we cannot, for the expense of our people, have prices skyrocketed. But let me just say this. I think one of the big problems that we do have is the influx of illegal people, foreigners into our country. So that also adds to, the problems that we are having. So you must, first of all, secure your borders. I think that is maybe one of the things that we must do, and make sure that our people are employed, make sure that we create jobs. Because we can talk about housing, we can talk about all of these things, but if we don't...
That is your allocated time. We haven't spoken much on this panel. It was quite a bit of conversation of the difference between a unitary state, a federalist state, and then, of course, the fringe conversation on Cape independence. Muhammad, your thoughts on the difference of a unitary federalist state, and your thoughts on the elements of Cape secession coming into this conversation?
Well, I think Cape secession shouldn't even be on our minds. I think we are working here for our nation. I think all of us need to share the resources that we have. In Western Cape, basically, have sort of rich resources. It might not be the richest sort of a province in the country compared to Gauteng, but I think it's a matter of having to not even think or go along that line. I think whoever basically puts forward that needs to be shut down. Coming to the federalist sort of way of doing things, I think there's some sort of merit in that. Just depending upon how we're going to do that, which area. Is it going to be Tshwane or city of Johannesburg or the mother city of Cape Town being the sort of federal capital itself? I think these will remain debated. And I think we should rather just leave that aside for now and think a bit longer term along those lines. But for now, we need to get our house, our nation state in order.
Verlin, you have a multi-party charter member, the Freedom Front Plus, who says, well, actively campaigning for Cape independence. If you're a party campaigning or sees yourself as part of a South Africa, your thoughts on a multi-party charter member actively campaigning for secession?
No, we distance ourselves from that. Of course, we distance ourselves from that. What we as the ACDP believe is that in federalism, so powers must be devolved. Our police is failing because it's been controlled from Pretoria. We need to get it down to our level. Schooling, education, clinics, all of that. But let me just say, we cannot go for succession. We are a country. We must build this country. But if we have strong federal powers, we can govern ourselves in the Western Cape. You know why people want succession, why people want to leave? Because of the corruption of the ANC, because of things not working, they want to run away. But we say stay so that we can build this beautiful country that we so love. So the ACDP, we believe in the devolution of powers to the lowest level so that we can serve our people better.
We're totally against this idea of secession or Cape exit. We believe that these are people and parties that know that they will never govern South Africa. They will never get the majority of South Africans to trust them to govern, and therefore they want to create their own country that they will be able to govern, and believe that what we currently witnessing, the history that is here in the District 6, is the history that is the reality that we will see in that separate country that's outside. It's also a question that we must ask. Until when are we going to keep when people see that they cannot be able to govern? Because this idea of the DA wanting to devolve the police and wanting to devolve certain services, it is them realizing that they will never govern at the national level, because many of those are national level competencies which they haven't been able to garner the majority of South Africans to be able to trust them to govern.
Cheslin.
Look, the Patriotic Alliance is simply against that. This country was founded on principles of unity and to be one people, and for us to entertain the idea even, to separate provinces, it will simply mean that families ultimately that has family in the Western Cape will need a passport. Because I know the DA, they would even want you to apply for a visa for all I care. But it comes down to power. It comes down to power, and as society we need to frown upon this type of behavior, that we are the better, we are the best run, we are superior to other provinces, which is not the case. And so the DA and the multi-party partners should really wake up from this slumber that we are the best run province. We are not the best run province. We are not the best run city, and we need to realize that we are one republic and we cannot be separate entities at the end of the day.
It's 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's go to a break, and when we come back, closing arguments from these people, these candidates who want to be your next premier. It's their final pitch to you on CapeTalk and Good Morning Cape Town, on why you should vote for their party on the provincial ballot, and if they get enough votes, they could be elected as premier in the provincial legislature. Back next. We're wrapping up our debate here at the District 6 Museum. I'll now start on my right-hand side. Ferlin Christians of the ACDP, you have 30 seconds to give your pitch to our listeners about why you should be the next Premier of the Western Cape.
Thank you very much. I think the most important thing is we've got 75 to 80% Christians in the country and the Western Cape. We're asking Christians to vote for the ACDP that's got a track record for 30 years, that's unblemished. a party that fought for you when it came to transgenderism, when it comes to unisex toilets, when it came to all these issues. Because we are a Bible-based party, we're asking Christians to come out the numbers and vote their values. Vote your value. So when you vote your value, you'll see that the ACDP is the only party that you can vote for. So come out on the 29th of May and vote
That's your time,
ACDP.
Christians representing the Patriotic Alliance. Why should you be the governing party in the Western Cape?
Thank you, Lester, and thank you to the listeners. The PA was the first party to use the slogan 2024 is our 1994 moment. And this is simply because the election year promises to change our beloved South Africa. The South African people, Lester, have waited long enough to live in a South Africa that finally lives up to its true potential as a peaceful, thriving and blessed home for all its citizens. So a vote for the PA is a vote for progress.
Premier candidate for ActionSA, Angela Sobey.
So, as the Premier candidate for the Western Cape, I want to ensure that I align my mandate going into government with civil society who are doing the job where government has failed to do that. And we've sent out an invitation for a civil society engagement that we're hosting tomorrow. And what I want voters to understand and to be mindful of is in casting their vote, they need to interrogate what parties are going to do for them and where their vote will go. Ultimately, we want to ensure that we offer them.
And that's your 30 seconds. Muhammad Harun of Al Jama.
Yeah, thanks. I think we do acknowledge that our province is a multicultural, multi-religious, multi-linguistic arena, and therefore we need to be mindful and have our communities at heart. So whatever we do, whoever goes into that post, need to consider our communities wherever they are and whoever they are. Thank you.
Akulili Notuwala of Rise Mzansi.
Thank you very much. More than anywhere in South Africa, this is a province where we have two nations. Our future together depends on our ability to bridge the divides that keep us apart, race, class, and space divides. This is why we launched the Bridge Plan in the Western Cape. This is what drives our contract and why we say we need new leaders in this province to build a safe, equal, prosperous, and united South Africa in one generation where everyone can live a happy and dignified life.
And that's our show. That is your Premier candidates and representatives for the 2024 provincial elections.